Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I'm going to be tackling another patron request, this time from Catherine Gordon, who last month requested the 1997 miniseries of The Shining, and this month is following it up with a request for me to watch and review Dr. Sleep. So this is probably about the fourth or fifth time that I've seen this movie, and this is going to kind of be halfway a review that's spoiler-free, and halfway a celebration of what I consider to be an impossible movie. Before I get into this review, I do want to just ask that if you've been digging my content, you've been enjoying my channel, to go ahead and please subscribe. Really does help me out a lot, and if you want to support me further and keep these videos going, you can either contribute with a super thanks down below, or consider joining the Patreon. We have watch parties, Discord benefits, all sorts of neat stuff, and the lowest tier starts at only $1 a month. So, this is the sequel to The Shining, the classic 1980 Stephen King, Stanley Kubrick movie. In this, we find Danny Torrance, now grown up and basically struggling to get by. He's still haunted by the demons of the Overlook, as both the elements of his past as well as the actual spirits that have found him out in the world, and he has had to find ways to construct defense mechanisms against. And as part of that, he has basically been hiding his shine. And unfortunately, that often involves the use of alcohol, falling deep into the pit of alcoholism and despair that his father once battled himself. And all of this starts getting turned on its head when we get introduced to a group of folks that are, for lack of any better term, shine vampires. They suck the steam out of people with these special abilities, whose leader is Rose the Hat, such an iconic villainess, and I love her to pieces. And the catalyst that really kicks off the plot points of this is from Abra Stone, a young girl that possesses a significant amount of shine or steam or this ability, and is becoming the target for this group as well as a pen pal for Danny. So all three individuals and groups and so forth start to really kind of get intertwined as they battle for Abra's freedom and safety and well-being, while Danny himself battles his own demons. So this was written and directed by Mike Flanagan, obviously based on the novel by Stephen King, but the screenplay was written by Mike Flanagan. And I remember hearing about the concept of the novel when Stephen King was considering it. I remember hearing news reports of Stephen King wants to write a sequel to The Shining. And I thought two things at that moment. First of all, that there's no way it could be as good as The Shining, and second, that there's no way they could make a movie out of it, for a number of reasons, but not the least of which was the divergent paths and how much of a wide gap there was between the Stanley Kubrick 1980 movie and the novel of The Shining written by Stephen King, and how much of, let's just say, a feudal loggerheads that everybody had kind of come to in terms of reconciling the literature versus the cinematic universe. This was attempted to kind of be addressed in the 1997 miniseries, but unfortunately was not nearly as well received as the Kubrick film. So just for the point of clarity and perspective so that everybody knows where I'm coming from, I have read the book of The Shining. I consider it to be one of Stephen King's best works, in all honesty. I've also watched the 1980 movie and the 1997 miniseries. I have not read the book of Dr. Sleep. So I really can't do a comparison of the novel versus this film. But what I can do is just kind of approach it from the Shining fandom that has absorbed almost everything except that. But if you had told me prior to 2019 that a cinematic sequel to The Shining could have been out there that was both a stellar movie in its own right, paid wonderful tribute to the Kubrick aesthetic and stylization and everything about the 1980 movie that made it great, and I do consider it to be great, as well as honoring the literature of the source material, it's not possible. This is absolutely, like I said, half a review and half a celebration, because I'm just flabbergasted. I can't believe that this movie exists. I still can't believe it. I've seen it 4 or 5 times. I cannot understand how he pulled it off, but he did. Now, I personally have not been the biggest fan on a storytelling level of the 1980 movie, just because the novel was so iconic and tackled so many deep issues with characters that I think the movie kind of missed. And I've often said, I even said in my review of the miniseries, that I consider the 1980 film to be more of a Stanley Kubrick movie than a Stephen King adaptation. But in that, it's also quite brilliant, and I don't mind saying so. Like I said, the aesthetics are outstanding. It's unfortunate the abusive atmosphere that kind of arose from there, but I have to give some stellar marks to all the performances involved, especially Shelley Duvall. As far as Jack Nicholson goes, yeah, it was a great performance, but again, it was pretty much Jack Nicholson playing Jack Nicholson as he does in almost every single one of his roles. But just from the perspective of the alcoholism and the struggles that Jack Torrance was going through, as well as the other characters' makeup and so forth, I felt that the movie kind of did it a bit dirty, and I know I'm not the only one with those feelings. As much as I love the film, and I can't help but just acknowledge its place in the iconic annals of cinematic horror history, as an adaptation, I felt like it missed the mark in a lot of ways. And that's one thing about Dr. Sleep that I find to be absolutely remarkable, is not only does it have that balance between honoring the aesthetics of the 1980 movie, but it also actually validates so much that was originally present in the novel of The Shining, in the struggle of alcoholism and the duality and the struggle and the conflict of human versus self that was embedded in every fiber of the novel. Somehow, Dr. Sleep as a film was able to address in its own way through not just the Danny character, but also him acknowledging the sins and the burdens and so forth of his father as he's going through AA and going through sobriety and going through his own struggles, as well as repaying the debt of the past and so forth, while also wanting to honor and acknowledge and love the person that his father was, while at the same time also hating the struggles that his father went through. It was a remarkable balance that also managed to not overshadow the entire film. As a film in its own right, as a storyline, it wasn't just a sequel to The Shining. It wasn't put out there with no merit of its own, only standing on the shoulders of a cinematic film of the past. It was its own unique storyline with fantastic characters, wonderful villains, great plot points, and just a marvelous amount of heart to it. I cannot recommend this movie enough. And again, I don't understand how it happened. Rebecca Ferguson playing Rose the Hat was just such an amazing character, so well performed, and I have to just tip my hat to her performance of that, as well as Kylie Curran playing Abra Stone. As a child actor, there was just so much in her performance of giddiness and happiness, and also an immense amount of melancholy and despair that was just really brought out in her performance at every single turn. Zahn McClarnon playing Crow Daddy, I thought was a fantastic character, sinister yet sympathetic in his own right. So much of this, not a single element of this character or story felt one-dimensional. Everything felt multidimensional. Everything felt sympathetic, yet at the same time complex. Everybody had their own motivations. Everybody had their own perspectives, and it all came together so wonderfully. I just consider this movie to be a marvel. Just to kind of jump into the deep end with metaphors at this point, if you've been sleeping on Dr. Sleep, then by God, it's time to wake up. This really is a fantastic movie in its own right. Even if you're honestly not that big of a fan of The Shining, I still think that this is worth seeing. This is just a great movie. But if you are a fan of The Shining, especially if you're a fan of the aesthetics of the carpet pattern and the Overlook Hotel and so forth of the original 1980 movie, and you haven't seen this film yet, do yourself a favor and schedule something on your calendar ASAP. This is a must watch. It is a highly recommend. It is a solid horror movie. And a great movie in its own right, even outside of horror. It's just a wonderful film that I can't help but just praise and somehow at the same time wonder, how is this impossible movie in front of our eyes? Mike Flanagan, to me, is honestly one of the most accomplished and iconic and talented filmmakers currently working in the industry today. Some of his films haven't really hit the mark for me. Oculus I did like, but if you've seen my video on it on Routed Entertainment, you know that it didn't work for me, and I kind of give a detailed explanation as to why there. But as things continue on with his filmography, I just see things getting more and more refined, more and more heart to it. Haunting of Hill House, then The Haunting of Bly Manor, then Midnight Mass, each one getting better and better. And I just cannot believe, and I am immensely appreciative that Dr. Sleep exists and is as good as it is. Never would have thought it was possible. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video before I get any more repetitive with my words. But thank you, Catherine, for recommending this one. I'm always happy to give Dr. Sleep another watch, and I'm very happy to talk about it on this channel here. So thank you again, and thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great, great weekend. Please take care of each other. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.